It's a 44 card list. The main deck was not like super standard. I didn't play Droll. I didn't play it in the side deck either. I made a couple of decisions just based off the fact it was a regional and not like a bigger event. That ended up paying off. I just wanted to respect like decks like Tenpai and Centurion a little bit more and play cards that were good enough into the mirror, non-engine wise, to like justify that sort of in a roundabout way. But I'll get to the list, my guy. Shout outs to Caleb behind the camera, Baker and Mike, they all rode with me to the event. Shout out to them for helping me test and providing a hotel room. And that's about it, man. For the engine, I played 3 Witch, Ash, Oak, Poplar, Flamberge. None of this needs to really be explained. This does. I played 3 Ulcanix. Some people play 2. I've even seen people play 1. Playing more of this means mathematically you're going to open redundant hands more often, but I'm fine making that trade-off because I play more often if I have more starters in my deck. That's sort of the idea. I guess this also does need to be explained. Some people play 2 or 1 of this and play like more Deception. I played 3 of this and 1 Deception. The mindset was that Zombie Vamp resolves more often if there's more of this in your deck, and conversely, less Deception means there's less of that card in your deck in a grind game, and that's by far the worst card in your deck post turn 1. So I originally was playing 3 Deception, 1 Witch, but I swapped it because like Zombie Vampire is broken, and you have to resolve that card. Like out of like every 10 games you play, that card is the reason you play like 3 or 4 of them. And if it doesn't hit like a Snake Eye card, you probably just lose the game. So that was sort of the idea behind 3 of that card. But yeah, 3 Ulcanix, 3 Kieran, this card's ridiculous. Honix, Elephant, both big birds. None of this needs to be talked about. I drew this card like 4 times, but I did open it with Kieran once, and I won the game as a result because I went Kieran pop this during my opponent's turn, and then they like didn't SP banish it, so like I just darkholed their board and they lost on the spot. That's it for the monsters. And I played 3 Bonfire, 3 Wanted, Original, the 1 Deception, of course. I think 1 of this is like completely fine. Like I said, in a grind game, which like with how much interruption and like non-engine people are playing, like you have to play. Grind games are inevitable. Like sometimes you'll win if you play because they just won't be able to stop you. But like I wanted my deck to be as good as possible past turn 1 while still being good enough turn 1, if that makes sense. And I think if you're on 3 Deception, your deck list is just straight up worse, at least from a testing perspective. The 1 Hollowed, of course, and then Island Sank. I sided this out going second like every game, and I sort of realized this the hard way. I kind of had to like live with it because I needed more room for hand traps going second anyway, and this is like the worst card in your deck going second most of the time. But Ogre is like a card right now, and it didn't come up or anything, but I was like playing post side, and then like I knew my opponent was on Ogre because they would like discard it for an effect or whatever, and I would just like change the way I played, and I probably should not have done that in hindsight, just as a result of like this not being in my deck. It ended up working out, but I guess just something to think about. But going first, I think I don't think I ever sided it out going first, but it came out every game I went second. I only went to game 3 the 1 match that I lost in time to Ubel. Every other match I won, and I 2-0'd like all of I believe I 2-0'd everybody. So I only sided for going first once the whole event. So this was like out of my deck like half the I can't even talk. Half the event, yeah. That's it for the engine though. The rest of the deck is hand traps. It's 3 Imperm, 3 Impulse, 3 Bird, 3 Ash, and then I played, instead of playing Droll, I played 2 Ogre, 2 Veiler. Like I explained previously, the idea was to respect Tenpai and Centurion. Neither of those decks care about Droll really at all. Like Tenpai cares a little bit, but good pilots know that card's a thing, and they'll just go Hydra, add Kaiman, and then you Droll them and you still die. But like I said, these cards are good enough into the mirror that I could justify not playing Droll. At a YCS, I probably would have just sucked it up and played Droll instead of these cards, and maybe like sided these. This card overperformed for sure. Every time I opened it, it was nuts because it's just more of this card. It's another way to stop shit like Arceolago, Black Witch, and stuff. And stopping Black Witch is really critical right now. It's more important than it ever has been, obviously. So, like, more copies of this card isn't bad, like, ever. But that's it for the main deck. It is 44 cards. For the side deck, or extra deck, excuse me, the 2 fusions, Lago and Sylvia, Anima, SP, IP, Phoenix. I summoned this 9 times. This was the reason I topped, probably. Final round, I played against a Cash player who was, like, main decking Necro Valley. He, like, set rotation into it, and then, like, passed on, like, Necro Valley Fenrir, and this was the only reason I beat that guy. And then it popped, like, an anti-spell and, like, a couple, like, random imperms and, like, set impulses throughout the course of the event. I maybe would have been fine against, like, some of those players without it, but definitely it was, like, I don't finish X1 if this wasn't in my deck. And, of course, that's due largely in part to variance and, like, opponents seeing, like, one-of cards like anti-spell, but I digress. The card was nuts all day. Dark, Hida, Sunlight Wolf. I was tunneling into this card a lot because I sort of just at some point, like halfway through the event, I just kind of came to the conclusion, like, okay, I'm 100% playing into hand traps every game. So, like, if I milled Ash or something like that, almost every time that happened, if I milled, like, Ash off, like, Zombie Vamp or had to send it for Deception or Black Witch, I was immediately going into a Wolf line to add it back, so I at least had some interruption. Because I was, by, like, round 4, after the loss in time to Ubel, I just kind of accepted I was never at full comboing. So Wolf was crazy as a result of that, just like me tunneling into the card the whole of it. No one like negated it, which was weird. Promethean, Whale, Raging Phoenix, Sea Dragon, none of this needs to be explained. Zombie Vamp and Eternity. I don't think I summoned this card, but I do think it is still necessary. You need it for like backer decks, you need it to like push through hand traps, like Valor and Imperm, and like just bait stuff. It's also just like borderline lethal off the rip if this card, like, even if its effect doesn't resolve, if this card like doesn't get removed from the board and you like start playing, there's the only thing I can think of they can do to like stop you from killing them in a meaningful way, or at least a consistent way, is like maybe some bullshit like Super Poly or Book of Eclipse, which only like rogue decks play, which like you're not supposed to respect those right now. But that's the extra deck. And the side deck was probably by no means standard, because again, like no Droll on the side. I played Bystials instead. I played 3 Perulia, 3 Bystials, 2 Druis, 1 Mag. The idea behind 2 Druis instead of 1 Druis, 1 Baldrake is that Baldrake requires a second card to get its full value, whereas this card only needs itself to get its full value. I don't play things like Nib and like a larger Bystial package the way that like a Centurion deck does, for example. So Baldrake never gets its full value, and I'm fine risking drawing the second Baldrake for just me having a better card in my extra deck than Baldrake. I think this card just straight up an upgrade, period. 3 Cosmic, really good right now. I sided in every game into Tenpai and Centurion. It's also just like a regional, so back row hate's like borderline mandatory in my opinion, regardless of the format. This card was ass. This should have been like another Floodgate, like maybe Anti-Spell or something, or maybe just like a Stray Ogre or Droll or whatever. Like this card came in, I think, against the Kashtira player, and that was it. It never felt good in any other matchup, whether it was the Mirror or Ubel or whatever. Would not play it again. Then I played Call By. Most people main deck this. This was probably like, I feel like main decking this is like borderline correct, because like Owl's just a card. I just wanted my deck to be as good as possible, whether or not I won or lost the dice roll. That was sort of the idea. It's also just like an unsearchable one of Idiot. Mathematically, you're better into Foolos, which every deck plays. So better players than myself would disagree with me, I'm assuming, but I sided it. It was fine. I didn't draw it at all. Because of course I only went first post side like once the whole event, and then the rest was just the skill drain and 3 barriers. I didn't play Thrust. The idea was so this of course comes in against Tenpai. We're never making that deck go second because we're never making that deck go first, because going second on purpose if you're not playing Tenpai is super cap. But the idea behind 3 barrier instead of like Thrust and like a number of this card is if you prevent your opponent from killing you, you are every single time that happens, you're going into a grind game. And the idea is that if there's multiple of this card in your deck, you're better in a grind game, I guess, like mathematically speaking, because you can just top deck this and like not die another turn, I guess. Honestly, it's probably fine if you play like Thrust and like one of this, it's like the same fucking thing, but I preferred 3 just off of that reason, but also just the fact that like it's a card you can open, and it plays around, I guess, like them not having hand traps, if that makes sense. But that's the side deck.
Any changes you would make?
The only change I would make, like I said, if it was a YCS, I would have played Droll. I would have, even though I don't like that card. I have the same problem with Droll I've had with it the whole time Snake Eye's been a deck, which is it's only going to win you the game like 2 or 3 times out of 10. It conflicts with Fuelos. Conflicting with Impulse is a fake reason not to play it, because of course Fuelos and like Valor, all those cards conflict with it, but like they're way more likely to pass. Even the Fire King variant, like the Mirror, is way more likely to pass into Owl or Perulia than a Droll. Like in testing, it felt crusty. It's awful into like Centurion. It's awful into most of like the decks you'll see that aren't Fire King. Tenpai can like it. You'll occasionally pack up a Tenpai player with it, but like I said, good players will play around it. They'll like not lead Prosby. They won't lead Terraforming. They'll go like Hydra add Kaiman or something like that, and then you just lose anyway after you just loop yourself for a card. Yeah, Valor overperformed though, so maybe like that's having a bit of an impact on my opinion of the card, I guess. Droll's obviously good, like people play it for a reason, but that's the only change I would make. The side deck felt fine, aside from, of course, the Skyburn. Actually, that's a huge change I would make, my bad. This card was butt. Like, this could have been anything else. It could have been a hand trap. It could have been like a Harpies or something, and it just would have straight up been a better card. Being able to search it is not a good enough reason to play it in my eyes, just because like you're probably never going to end up in a position where like you can activate it reasonably and then be able to continue pushing for lethal, even though all your guys float. It's very rare that that's going to happen, let alone them letting you resolve the card to begin with. But that's the deck, man. Again, shout outs to my guy Caleb behind the camera. Shout outs to Baker and Mike. Shout outs to everyone from Huntsville. And that's it, man.